Facts that will mess with your perception of time. Anne Frank and Martin Luther King would be the same age if they were alive today. Queen Elizabeth and Marilyn Monroe were both the same age as well. Here they are when they were both 30 years old meeting each other. George Washington died 25 years before the first dinosaur fossil was found. George Washington did not know about the existence of dinosaurs. Woolly mammoths were still walking around the earth 1,000 years after the pyramids were built. Also, Cleopatra was alive closer in time to the moon landings than the building of the Great Pyramid. NASA was already exploring space by the time scientists could agree on how plate tectonics worked. Follow for more.
A few days ago, I posted about this girl talking to her scary imaginary friend named Gilbert. Well, this is the follow-up story to that video. Apparently, her mother noticed her banging and singing on this floorboard, so when they uncovered it, they found something very, very terrifying related to Gilbert underneath it. I'm gonna roll the clip right now.
Have you guys heard about the man that volunteered to be eaten? He responded to a cannibalistic ad and he actually volunteered. His name was Armin, but online his name was Frankie, and in 2001 he posted this very disturbing ad. Shockingly, someone actually responded. Someone actually responded to this ad and volunteered. He responded with the words, "Please eat me," and this man actually went to Armin's home in Germany to meet up and do whatever they discussed online. The most disturbing thing is that both of them knew what was about to happen and they even recorded the whole process. Which I've seen the crime photos and it's super duper disturbing. Especially when you see the video he posted. So what happened next is too disturbing, I can't show you guys, but I will say that the details are a bit graphic. He amputated his body and they even tried to eat a part of him. Both of them together tried to eat a part of him. After that, he was unalived and he butchered his body and put it in the freezer, labeling it as pork. The only reason why he was caught in the first place was because he posted another ad looking for his next meal. The people who saw this footage say that it's one of the most horrifying things they've ever watched and they are scarred for life. Some say this man is still alive and that he doesn't regret what he did. He said it wasn't murder, he said it was his next meal. What do we think about this disturbing case?
A friend of mine lives in Chicago, and she and her husband thought that they had a family of raccoons living in their attic because they kept hearing all of these sounds upstairs above their bedroom. One day my friend is home alone, her husband's out of town, and the sounds are particularly bad, worse than they've ever been before. And she's sitting there and she's like, what is going on? Like, what could like, there must be 1 million raccoons up in my attic. And so she decides to pull the access stairs down from the ceiling, and she's too frightened to go all the way up into the attic. She just crawls up 4 or 5 stairs and just sticks her arm up into the attic and just snaps a photograph. She pulls her phone down to see what's actually living there. Warning. This is what is on her phone screen, staring back at her. He was 7 feet away from her when she took this picture.
Can you imagine living in your house, you and your husband, you think it's just the two of you, and the entire time this man is living in your attic? This is the kind of stuff I truly fear. I can watch any horror movie, listen to any ghost story, but this kind of stuff I don't mess with. I can't do it. Anyways, so this woman ran out of the house. She called police. They came, took him out of there, and it looks like he was in that house for over a year. He would come down when the woman and the husband weren't home, and he would steal the husband's clothes, and they think that he was either selling it or wearing it. They don't really know. This is just a little reminder, if you move somewhere new, you might want to check the attic and all the rooms in the house, or you might find yourself in a situation like this in the middle of the night.
This TikTok influencer and her mom were recently sentenced to life in prison. This is 24-year-old Mehek Bukhari, and she was a former TikTok influencer, and she was known for her makeup and lifestyle videos. She lived with her parents and her brother in the UK. This is her mother, Ansareen Bukhari, and it oftentimes would come out in her videos. Ansareen was in a 3-year affair with 21-year-old Saqib Hussain, who she had met on a dating app. In January of 2022, Ansareen decided that she wanted to end the relationship with Saqib, and throughout the whole relationship, he had spent between 2,000 to 3,000 pounds on her, and in US dollars, that would be between maybe like $2.5 to $3.7 thousand. Saqib had sexually explicit photos and videos of the both of them, and he basically blackmailed her and threatened her that if she stopped talking to him, he was going to send those to her husband and her son. Mehek was aware of the affair, and although she did not approve of it, she was just trying to tolerate it. On January 4th of 2022, Mehek and Ansareen came up with a plan. So Mehek had contacted Saqib, and she basically told him to give her the videos and photos, and he would get 3,000 pounds in return. Mehek told Saqib to meet Ansareen in the parking lot of Tesco in Hamilton, Leicester, and to hand over his phone. And if he did not comply to this, they were going to give him a serious injury. February 11th, Saqib and 21-year-old Hashim, who was his cousin / best friend, drove to the location together. When they both got to the location, they noticed that there was 2 cars waiting there for them, so that's when they decided to flee. Those 2 cars followed them and chased them at 100 miles per hour. They contacted 999, which is equivalent to 911 here in the United States, and they basically told dispatch that they were being chased. They were trying to run them off the road, and they feared that they were going to die. Then there is a scream before the call cuts out, and there is a loud bang. End up crashing, the car splits in half, and the car catches on fire. Saqib and Hashim were both killed at the scene. Police were able to refer to CCTV footage, and they were able to see the 2 cars and who was driving that other car. Police went to Mehek and Ansareen's home, and when they were speaking to Mehek, she was just lying to police to try and get out of this. Just this month, Mehek was sentenced to 31 years and 8 months in prison, and Ansareen was sentenced to 26 years and 9 months.
This is why you should always know a preacher. A man named Jack went to church on Sunday. He sat next to the preacher and said that he needed to talk. The preacher asked what's wrong, and Jack says, I just can't do this anymore. The preacher says, can't do what anymore? Jack says, deal with my ex-wife. She's driving me crazy. The preacher says, what is she doing that's causing you to feel this way? Jack says, she's driving me insane. She's trying to take my kids away, and I can't let her do that. The preacher says, I understand, but you need to do things the legal way. There's not much I can do for you other than pray. Jack stops and looks at the preacher for a second. Jack says, lawyers can't help me, Father. The preacher says, why not? Jack says, my ex-wife is dead. I need an exorcist. If you guys want to see more stories like this, make sure to like and follow.
This is why babysitting always freaks me out. So in 2014, Sarah DeWalt was babysitting for a new family that had just moved into her neighborhood in Ohio. The family consisted of 2 young children under 10, but when Sarah showed up that night, the parents kept talking as if they had 3 children. There were 3 sets of pajamas laid out, there were 3 bowls of ice cream on the counter, but the family clearly only had the 2 kids. So that night, Sarah and the kids are winding down watching a movie when all of a sudden Sarah starts hearing noises in the house. There were footsteps shuffling like someone else was there, and she had this overwhelming feeling that she was being watched. So she gets up to check on the noise, but then the kids turn to her and say, oh, that's Bonnie, don't bother her. Sarah leaves it because she's freaked out, but then later that night she goes to check the nanny cam and she sees this image captured in the hallway. She stayed up until the parents came home, but she never went back after that.
This is Carla Nash. She literally had her face ripped off by Travis the chimp. People noticed that Travis the chimp became way more irritable after they took him off his medication for his Lyme disease. But nobody expected when Carla picked up his Tickle Me Elmo toy for him to rip her face off and dismember her body. There is a 911 audio call between Sandra Harold and a dispatcher and her begging them to come out and kill the monkey because he's dismembering her friend. Carla had to undergo 72 hours of surgery and an experimental face transplant surgery. This left her completely blind for life. When police arrived on the scene, one of them shot Travis the chimp and then he died later right next to his cage. But the damage was already done. Carla was already disfigured and nearly dead. In my next video, I'm going to be playing audio clips from the 911 call between Sandra and the dispatcher. Stay tuned for that.
There are some crazy things happening in the world right now. Fireball is offering a lifetime supply of their whiskey only to their fans that are over 90 years old. NASA found a diamond in space that is 5 times bigger than Earth. The amount of money that was spent on GTA 6 is more than it took to build the tallest building in the world. Zoos are now giving guests special glasses to avoid eye contact with gorillas. An AI applied to the art school in Vienna successfully. A mini dachshund named Valerie survived on a remote island in Australia for over a year by herself. A hawk terrorized a bald man for weeks, and a falconer told him that it was just hormonal. A man was ticketed in Montreal just minutes after his parking spot turned into a bus stop. A 71-year-old man was arrested after police found 7 emotional support tigers inside his house. NASA is offering $3 million to anyone who can recycle 96 bags of astronaut poop on the moon. Police are investigating whether a foster mom in Missouri traded a child for a monkey to grow her exotic pet collection.
Can you believe that this was almost the Ghostface mask for Scream? While scouting out locations for the first Scream movie, they stumbled upon a mask in an abandoned house. It was produced by a company named Funworld, and it was called the Peanut-Eyed Ghost. Well, Funworld wanted a little bit too much money for them to use their mask, so they went to the drawing boards. Here are just a few of the concepts that they drew up. Quite different, huh? They were eventually able to come to an agreement, and thus one of the most iconic horror masks of all time was born. This may look like a Wish.com Michael Myers mask, but it's actually from the original movie. 43 years ago, they painted a Captain Kirk mask white, and now we have one of the most iconic horror killers ever. I'm actually impressed with how well it held up over that long.
Imagine waking up at night to this figure being in your bedroom. Between 1957 and 1971, that was a terrifying reality for those living on the Channel Island of Jersey. Edward Paynell was your everyday family man. He had a wife, children, and even dressed up as Santa Claus for foster home orphans during Christmas. But when he donned his horrific mask, he became the Beast of Jersey. He preyed upon women and children, entering their bedrooms through open windows and committing unspeakable acts on his victims. His reign of terror came to an end in 1971 when he was convicted on 13 counts of rape, sexual assault, and sodomy against 6 of his victims. He was sentenced to 30 years in prison, but disturbingly was released after 20 for good behavior in 1991, dying of a heart attack 3 years later.
Forbidden places that you can never visit. Snake Island is an island off of the coast of Brazil filled with deadly snakes. Rising sea levels caused this piece of land to become an island, allowing for the snakes to flourish in their own environment. There are now up to 5 snakes every square meter, and you are not allowed to go here. In Svalbard, Norway, there is a global seed vault, aka the Doomsday Vault. It is the world's seed bank, storing samples of crops from all over the world just in case of a global catastrophe. The tomb of Qin Shi Huang in China holds an army of warriors made of clay. It protects the burial spot of the first emperor of China who died in 210 BC, and we only discovered this tomb in 1974. Poveglia Island in Italy was used to exile hundreds of thousands of victims of the plague. It is said to be one of the most haunted places on Earth, and a dark local legend says that 50% of the soil is made up of human remains. Follow for more.
Was this the worst form of medieval punishment? If you found yourself as a prisoner in a medieval castle, you may be subject to the dungeon, torture, or even execution. But what could be worse? Well, let me tell you about the oubliette, also known as the Forgotten Room. This was a specialized type of prison in some medieval castles, perhaps for the worst of offenders. It was a narrow shaft, sometimes 8 feet deep, with only one entrance and exit, a trapdoor located on the ceiling. The shaft being so narrow that the individual would be forced to stand. They couldn't kneel, they couldn't sit, they could barely turn around. The fall alone into the oubliette would sometimes break bones. In some cases, these would even be built into the upper walls of the castle, so the victim could hear the hustle and bustle of castle life, but could not escape. Depending on the situation or individual, they might throw you some food and water if you were to be kept alive. In most cases, you were subject to stand there, starve to death, and then be devoured by vermin. The most you could do was stand there, look up at the grate, and realize you cannot escape. Oh yeah, did I also mention sometimes jagged stones would be placed at the bottom? And of course, you were also subject to stand in your own waste. Leap Castle, which is located in Ireland, had quite an active oubliette. So many skeletons were discovered in one in the 1920s that it took 3 cartloads to transport them off the property. Between the sleep deprivation, the starvation, the psychological torture, and the claustrophobia, I think this is the worst form of medieval torture.
She was killed by her own people. This is what happened to 30-year-old Annie Mae Aquash. Annie Mae was born on March 27, 1945, and was born into the Mikwok First Nation. Annie Mae was a part of the American Indian movement, and she was just extremely passionate about human rights and the preservation of tribal communities. She was a mother of 2, so she was fighting for her children's safety and future. Throughout her time with the American Indian movement, she was arrested on federal weapons-related charges, but she was quickly released. She was arrested for a second time in November of 1975. However, she was released just 10 days later on November 25th. Due to how quickly she was released, some members of the American Indian movement started to believe that maybe she was working as an informant for the FBI, and that's why she was released so quickly. The last time anyone saw Annie Mae was in the middle of December, and then just 2 months later, on February 24th, 1976, a farmer in South Dakota stumbled upon a frozen, badly decomposed body. His farm was located along the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, and this corpse was wearing blue jeans, a maroon jacket, and they were laying with their knees pushed up all the way to their chest. Police were called to the scene, and a coroner determined that this was a woman and that they had been dead for more than 2 months. Due to the condition of the body, it took a little bit over a week for police to identify this corpse as 30-year-old Annie Mae Aquash. Initially, they believed that she died of exposure, that she froze to death. They buried her, and that was that. When her family and friends heard the news about her death, they were just completely shocked. They were trying to figure out what had happened since the last time she was seen in December to when her body was found in February. I mean, what happened in those 2 months? They just had a gut feeling that something more had happened. They requested a second autopsy. They exhumed her body, and this new autopsy revealed that Annie Mae had a gunshot wound to the back of her head. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't the consequence of exposure. Annie Mae was murdered. Her friends and family initially believed that maybe the FBI had done this to silence her. However, it was later revealed that no, the FBI didn't do this. Instead, she was kidnapped, R-worded, and unalived on December 12, 1975 by 3 members of the American Indian movement. Her family just couldn't believe that she was betrayed by those she trusted and by people she believed had her back. As of today, someone has been convicted for the murder of Annie Mae and has been sentenced to life in prison, but were more people involved? Her family believes that maybe higher level officials at the American Indian movement could have ordered her death because they truly believed that she was an FBI informant. It's been nearly 30 years since Annie Mae, a mother, a sister, a beloved friend, a human being, was killed. To hear more about what happened to Annie Mae, make sure to watch Vow of Silence on Hulu to uncover the truth, and let me know what you guys think about this down below.
This is a true horrifying story, part 78. This story took place in Tilburg, Netherlands in the year 2020. Ibrahim, a man that was 23 years old back in 2020. Ibrahim is originally Iraqi, but he was born and raised in Netherlands. One night, Ibrahim got a call from his ex-girlfriend, a Dutch girl that he hasn't seen in over 2 years. She told him she wanted to hang out, and she asked if she can come over, and he said yes. When she arrived, Ibrahim and this girl go to the bedroom and they do the dirty. After they were done, she took her things and she left. This is a crucial point in Islam. When you do the dirty with a girl, even if you've done it the halal way with your wife, there is something you must do afterwards called the ghusl. The ghusl is known as a washing or cleansing procedure. If you did not perform the ghusl after finishing what you did, you are not permitted to pray or even touch the Quran. Your body will be considered najis. And when you are najis, you are more prone to jinn possessions and you will attract jinns to your household. After this girl left, Ibrahim did not shower, he did not clean himself, he went straight to bed. As he was falling asleep, his body went through sleep paralysis. He figured it could have been a normal paralysis cycle, but this one in particular is not normal at all. Ibrahim was fully aware of his surroundings as this was happening. He felt that his mattress was slowly being lifted up in the air, and then he felt something pushing him deep into the mattress. Right then, he knew that this was a Jathum. In intense fear, this was happening for 5 minutes straight. He started to recite Ayatul Kursi, and as he was reciting, he saw a face that he was not able to describe to me. He cannot even draw it down. That face was something sinister. He felt that even the Quran recitation was not helping. This is how crucial your ghusl is in Islam. Moments later, the mattress falls down in its place and Ibrahim was able to move. He was crying heavily as he was running out of his home. He gets in his car and he quickly drives to his mother's house. For days straight, Ibrahim was crying from this trauma. He was not able to eat, he was not able to sleep. And the day he went back to his place, he felt the presence of that sinister being even days after he was gone.
What would you do if you were offered $9 million but you had to unalive your best friend? In 2019, 22-year-old Denali Bremer from Anchorage, Alaska had met a guy online named Tyler. Tyler was supposedly a millionaire from Kansas and he fell madly in love with Denali after meeting her online. Tyler had promised Denali $9 million if she SA'd and unalived someone. If she were to videotape the crimes and send him photos of what happened, then the money would be hers. The two quickly formed a close bond and within months they began their plans. The thing was, Tyler was lying about who he was. His name was actually Darren Showmiller and he wasn't a millionaire. He was just a regular guy living in Indiana. Denali had no idea that he wasn't who he said he was. Denali and Darren had exchanged numerous messages how this plan was going to work. Denali took no time to choose her best friend, 19-year-old Cynthia Hoffman. Denali had chose 4 of her closest friends, and if they were to help out with the plan, they would get some of the money, which included 2 juveniles who have not been named, and we have Caden and Caleb. On June 2nd of 2019, Cynthia had left her home to hang out with some friends. She failed to return home, so her father tried to report her as missing, but when he went to the police, they said that he had to wait at least 24 hours. Denali had called Cynthia's dad throughout the night, telling him how she hoped that Cynthia was okay, and since they were best friends, Cynthia's dad did not find this strange at all. A few days later, Cynthia's body was found in a river. She had suffered a gunshot wound in the back of her head. The police had investigated her death and put together details pretty quickly. Denali was then brought into the station for questioning. Denali had mentioned to investigators that all of the friends were playing a game where they all duct tape each other. Cynthia was first in the game and she immediately knew it wasn't a game anymore when Denali had retrieved a gun and pointed it at her. That is when Caleb had grabbed the gun from Denali and shot Cynthia in the back of the head. Denali was excited what she had did to her best friend, so she immediately called Darren, and that's when she knew that she was tricked. Denali had led detectives to the others who had participated, and they were arrested within a few days. In February of 2023, Denali had accepted a plea deal and will spend at least 30 years in prison. In August of 2023, Darren had pled guilty and he will be sentenced at a later date. As for Caleb, in November of 2023, he pled guilty to second-degree murder and he is expected to be in jail for up to 75 years.
These are the world's most haunted dolls, starting at number 4. Letta the doll, a 200-year-old wooden doll with human hair. She was discovered beneath a house in Australia. Kerry Walton, the caretaker of this doll, witnessed many strange things ever since he took her inside his home. Marks on the floor, objects mysteriously moving, and strange noises at night. Number 3. Okiku. This doll was purchased by a young man in 1918 in Japan as a gift for his younger sister. Tragically, after a year, the little girl passed away from a severe case of the flu. Sometime later, the family noticed something off about the doll's hair. It was originally short, and it has grown past its shoulder. Until this day, the doll's hair is maintained on a regular basis because it never stopped growing. Number 2. Annabelle. Known for its infamous movie releases and stories with Ed and Lorraine Warren, we do know that this doll is possessed by something that is evil, and whoever held this doll suffered from many bad things. Therefore, the doll is now stored in the Warren Museum, safe and sealed. But Annabelle is not the most haunted doll, because coming at number 1, Robert. Robert is not an ordinary doll. This thing is sinister. This doll is possessed by a demon, and it speaks to children. In Florida, in the early 1900s, this doll was gifted to a young boy named Robert Eugene, and his parents always used to hear Robert and his doll speak in the bedroom alone, and the family used to hear the voice of the doll respond. Eugene kept his doll till 1974 until he passed away at an old age. No one knew why this old man kept his doll for more than 70 years. After his death, Robert was given to the East Martello Museum. Visitors who have taken his picture without permission claim to have experienced terrible misfortune. If you visit Robert in the museum, you will see that this doll is surrounded by apology letters and also other letters, like permission to look at him, and no one dares to take a picture of Robert.
Today's story is about these life-size dolls. I don't know why she's looking at me like that. I'm not scared. We good. We're not scared. We are not scared. These stories make me so happy that there's so much shit under my bed that there's no room for monsters down there. So this lady says that when she was little, her father gifted her this life-size doll and she was in love with it. She loved this doll so much that she has kept it over the years and actually stored it underneath her daughter's bed. Mama ever did that shit. Anyway, she says that her daughter was actually really scared about that doll being stored under her bed. Why wasn't it under your bed, ma'am? And this is a story that her daughter tells her happened. So she wakes up in the middle of the night and thought that it was so weird that her arm was hanging between like the space of the wall and the bed. She thought it was weird because there had never been room there, so like it was always just the wall, her bed, no room for her arm to like go down there. When she tried to pull her arm out of that crack, she says that she felt like a little plastic hand grab it and pull it underneath the bed. After she finally pulled her arm out of there, she said that there were marks of a tiny hand on her hand. She was so scared that she ended up running to her mom's room and waking her up. Obviously, she tells her mom that she doesn't want that doll underneath her bed anymore. So her mom says that she did take that doll from underneath her bed. However, she still has it stored. She doesn't want to get rid of that doll. The way it would be burning if I had heard my child tell me that this happened. Like, not to be an asshole, but like, what does the mom think is gonna happen when one day she's not here? She thinks her daughters are gonna keep that doll forever. Girl, I will bury you with that doll because if you think I'm gonna keep that doll hearing what I just heard, was that too much? Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. But like, if you love it so much, I love you, jeez. It was nothing. It was the wind. I don't know what that sound was. I live in a townhome. I have neighbors. They're okay. We don't share any walls with them, but that could have been them. Anyway, what do you guys think about the doll? Because nothing happened in my office. Nothing happened here.